Welcome back to Sahara TV. My name is Rudolph Okonkwo. We have a new Pope in the Vatican, Pope Francis. To help us understand what it all means, we have brought an old friend of our show, Bishop Hassan Kukah, the Bishop of Sokoto Diocese. Bishop Kukah, welcome to Sahara TV.
Thank you very much, Rudolph.
Let me start by asking you, where were you when you heard that Pope Benedict resigned, and what was your reaction?
Well, I was in my house, and when the telephone call, and then I went to see it, and I confirmed this thing. I guess that it was one of what I shocked, because typically I had still been in the Vatican before this announcement, and see the Holy Father. But I was actually not that anything away. And I think that will have to be reality and action, a lot of
Sorry, Bishop, our connection is bad. I think let's call you back, Bishop, and see if we'll get a better connection, please. Please.
Okay.
All right. All right. Viewers, if you're still watching, we have a bad connection. We're going to call the Bishop back, and then we will continue our discussion with him on the election of the new Pope and what it means for the Church in Africa and the rest of the world. Thank you. So when we get the Bishop back, we are going to talk about the crisis in the Church, what the new Bishop, the new Pope might be able to do to resolve some of the issues. We will talk about possible reforms that are being suggested for the Church in America and the rest of the world. Also, we may talk about the situation in Nigeria and hear the opinion of the Bishop on the pardoning of some convicted politicians in Nigeria by the president, and also what he thinks about the proposal by the Sultan of Sokoto and some other Nigerians for an amnesty for the Boko Haram fighters in Nigeria. And okay, I understand that we now have the Bishop back, and let's see if the connection will be better now. Bishop Kukah, welcome back to Sahara TV.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that's very good. So I was asking you, where were you when you heard that Pope Benedict resigned, and what was your reaction?
Well, as I said, I just, I was in my room. First of all, it was a telephone call I got, and I turned the television on and picked up the news. This was actually less than a week after I had come back from Rome, and I had seen the Holy Father. But there was really nothing that gave anything away. Well, it has come and gone. All that is history now. And I guess the new developments are really giving us more confidence and greater joy in the fact that God is a God who shapes our history.
But do you think that his resignation changed in a fundamental way the position of the Pope? That is, that, for instance, that any new Pope that gets into office could be pressured to resign if things are not going well?
Well, first of all, the Holy Father was not pressured.
Oh, of course, we know, yeah.
I don't think that this necessarily now opens up, a window to say that the next Pope is likely to resign and so on and so forth. I don't think, we must take every phase of history and every character in history as they come. It has created an opportunity, people are going to respond to these things differently, but I don't think it necessarily means that we are going to start witnessing a rush of resignations by subsequent popes.
Mm. Now, a lot has been made of the fact that the new Pope, Pope Francis, is from South America. Does it matter where a Pope is from? And do you think that in our lifetime, in your lifetime, for instance, that we are going to have a black Pope?
Well, as I've said severally, we can't have a black pope. We may have a pope who happens to have a black skin. But as far as the Pope of the Catholic Church is concerned, it's a Pope of the Catholic Church with no ancestry and no race. That is why as soon as you are elected a Pope, you literally drop every form of identity. You no longer have a father. So the name you take is, he's no longer bearing his father's name. It may be that he came from Argentina, but the president of Argentina, members of his parish cannot just pick up the phone now and call. When the excitement dies down, people will now realize that it's no longer like having a son of yours in some high office in Washington or New York. But of course, I mean, it is the baggage of experience that this present Holy Family is coming with that is of great significance and should be a reason for us to be even increasingly joyful. That is literally as good as having a pope from Africa. One, I believe that his baggage of experience is much likely to shape the way he's going to see things in the same way that we saw with especially Pope John Paul II. His experience with communism, his experience growing up in Poland, managed to help him to shake the foundations of communism, which actually finally is crumbling. So I think coming from Latin America, having been a man who had held high feet but still had his feet on the ground, and a man who took his bearings from the view of the poor, clearly, I think he should speak loudly to a world that has become obsessed with materialism and greed. So I think we should be expecting to see the Catholic Church itself woken up from its slumber and to face the issues of how best to use the resources that God has given us, to shape our collective history.
Yeah, you touched on some of the attributes of the Pope. We are hearing that he's somebody who is very humble, and as Archbishop, he rejected the mansion that was provided to him and preferred to stay in an apartment that he cooked for himself, and he was using the bus to go to work. I mean, do we have such archbishops in Africa, in Nigeria?
Well, I mean, let's be clear. I mean, taking a bus and cooking your own food is one thing. I don't think that is necessarily a definition of how people respond to the material things of this world. I mean, I give you an example of somebody like Cardinal Okoje, the former Archbishop of Lagos, who was also in the conclave. I mean, as you know, most of us sit at the back of a car, what in Africa you call the owner's corner. Cardinal Okoje never, ever, for over 30 years I knew him, he never sat at the back seat of a car. You can find all that in almost that is our life. But people make an issue out of the fact that you're driving a Jeep or you are driving a big car or whatever. These things are not the way you used to define how people feel. Most of this occurs in the heart. It depends on how we deal with issues of wealth and power. But clearly the Holy Father himself will sooner than later wake to the reality that, first of all, he may have paid his bills at the Vatican. I think that is actually spectacular. But it's not like to be able to pay his next bill. We don't expect to see that the Italian post office paying for his postal bills. I don't expect to see him entering the bus in the Vatican or anything of the sort. But at least metaphorically, like I said, we have in him a template for helping us appreciate the simplicity and the simple things of life. I mean, with him coming out and asking the people to pray for him and bowing, it always talks to the issues that politicians have talked about but never found the political will to do, namely that real power flows from the people and that the voice of the people is genuinely and truly the voice of God. That metaphor alone should send out a signal to the whole world about what Christ himself came to represent, and which we ourselves, we may not have done it very well, but that should be our reference point, that we've come to serve, not to be served.
Now, Bishop, what do you think about the scrutiny that the media seem to be focusing on the Pope now, especially in the area of his past dealings or his life in Argentina? If you want to look at the allegation that he had dealings with the military when they were running the country. What do you think about that? Is it a good thing that everything about the Pope is now being looked into? And for future people who might occupy that position, what does that mean?
Well, you know, I mean, the fact of the matter is you'll have people in the media who have to get used to a Pope coming from, well, let me use the word, a developing country. And that, again, these are some of the things that you should expect when you talk about a Pope coming from Africa. You still have people, they are in the media, they are everywhere, who still have their own views about where the center of life and the center of the world ought to be. And as far as I'm concerned, the way they see life and the way they see power is within a Eurocentric worldview. I mean, it's quite preposterous for somebody to say that you were imperial and 2 priests were arrested and that you did nothing. I mean, I was in Nigeria under the regime of Abacha. We all saw what happened. You live under a military regime. You live under a military regime. So are you going to take a gun and break through the office of the president to compel him to do X, Y, Z? So, I mean, frankly, for me, it's a triviality. And this, in my view, is almost what I call a left-wing approach to those who think that whatever it is, you must find something against the Catholic Church. We've gone through quite a lot, as you saw in the run-up to the, to the conclave itself. But, the Catholic Church, we're not talking of a church that was founded 100 years ago by a human being. I think it must be on record that the Catholic Church is the only church that is the church. We've got 2,000 years of history, and we've been through all this. So there is nothing that is new, and I think that the rest of the world knows better than that in terms of what to expect from the present Holy Father.
Now, Catholics in the West, talking about the Western world, they are demanding for reforms, and even the Archbishop of Scotland, Keith O'Brien, suggested that maybe it may be time for priests to be allowed to be married. Now, are you open to such reforms? And if the leadership of the church should institute such reform or recommend that, will you accept it?
I mean, you must understand. I mean, I think all this talk about the media is purely media hype. We are the ones who are in the church. This is not a move that is driven necessarily by the Catholics. I mean, I've said it in an interview in a Nigerian newspaper. Nobody has stopped me from getting married. Even as a bishop, the only thing is that if I want to get married, I can no longer be a Catholic priest. So I don't think it's any priest you find on the road is necessarily a priest simply because they cannot help it, or that priests are desperate to get married, only that they've been stopped from. Everybody who entered the seminary knew about this before they got into the seminary. So I think this is purely and simply a distraction. As for the kind of reforms that people should expect, I think the church has its own internal mechanism for listening to questions and identifying the things that are of great urgency. I mean, we just finished a synod on new evangelization. The church already has its own program of how it is to renew itself and to evangelize and revitalize itself. When people talk about reforms, and they're talking about priest marriage, I mean, removing celibacy and ordaining women, and so these are not the things that the Catholic Church is dealing with. They're not the kind of things that the Pope can on his own decide to change. So clearly, reform does not necessarily mean getting away with the basics of the Catholic faith, most of which are immutable. They are not subject to change. And why we've been here for 30 years is purely and simply because they have time-tested teachings that, as St. Paul said, we are in the world, the door of the world. I mean, the reason that Protestantism and the subsequent growth of churches, including the one that was founded yesterday, has been that people had a quarrel and they decided they want to start their own church. 2 pastors quarrel over a Sunday collection, and it's another reason for one to start his own church. 2 pastors quarrel over healing, and it is reason for one to start a new church. So the Catholic Church is not a church that is that just started yesterday. So, as I said, it's important to know that in every department of human life, the Catholic Church was there literally before anybody, whether it's in diplomacy, economics, politics, whatever area of life. So, I'm sorry if I sound triumphalistic, but I'm just saying the changes we're talking about, there are things in the Catholic Church that cannot be changed.
Now, the Pope was quoted to have said something like that poverty is a human rights issue of our time. Is that an indication that it might become, the church might make it a cause, more than ever before? The issue of poverty and inequality in several countries of the world.
Well, in the level analysis, the Pope is not governing the world. He's not the chief executive in the regular sense of the word. Every country, every church has to deal with its own problems. The church can lend its moral voice. For us in Africa in particular, our challenge is to confront the existing political structures, the increasing inequalities, the high corruption, the violence, the inter-ethnic acrimony, the failure of politics, the incredible and deepening greed of the political elite. These are not problems the Pope will solve for us. They are the problems that the church in Africa must develop the tools to confront. So, even if he has his priority on issues of poverty, they may not necessarily be the issues in Brazil. They may not necessarily be the issues that the church is worried about in Brazil. They are not the same with the things the church is worried about in America, Italy, Spain, Nigeria, or Ghana. All of us have our own different problems. And I think we can only draw on the moral authority of the church to support us. But really and truly, the church is not just, the Pope is not just the leader of a company.
Yeah, Bishop, when we said you were coming, we asked our viewers to send in questions, and they sent in a lot of questions. One of them is this. It says that in the Western world, there are accusations of child abuse that involving Catholic priests, and it cost the church over millions and millions of dollars. And the question is that some of these priests were once in Africa. And why, the question now is, why haven't we heard about such cases in Africa? And is it because the victims in Africa are not willing to come out?
Well, I think that's a very good question. But it should also speak to even the timing and the context of this whole debate. First of all, I remember a Jewish rabbi wrote an article 2 years ago asking, why is it that it's only the Catholic Church that has been targeted? He said, everybody in the world, whether you are teachers or in nursery school or primary school, or whether you are anyone who has had a responsibility with dealing with people, whether the pastors and priests of other faiths, pedophilia is a human condition. It was not something that happened in the Catholic Church alone. But don't forget that 90% of the issues we're talking about didn't happen 4 years or 3 years ago. These are people coming forward now to say that they were molested 30 or 40 years ago. Meaning that even if you yourself were just a teacher, that what you are dealing with is a situation in which somebody that you brought up or you were involved with many years ago suddenly someone has said this is what you did to them 30 or 40 years ago. So, we have the system that has been designed in such a way that all it requires is for somebody to make an accusation and then you automatically are compelled to step aside. Now, the conspiracy and to destroy the Catholic Church is an old game. I'm not saying that these things should be condoned. No. I'm just saying that don't forget that there are people from the time of Christ who wanted the church out of existence in the first place. And I think that the Catholic Church, as you saw in the last few weeks, we have the strongest moral voice in the world. So I'm not surprised that the Catholic Church will be chosen as a target. You might pose the question, how is it that nobody has mentioned this thing in any other church or in any other organization with the same ferocity as they have done with the Catholic Church? So, that's all I'm prepared to say. That we must appreciate the fact that even if this has happened, it is also quite interesting. It's only the Catholic Church that has been pushed forward. When in reality, if you are dealing with the issues of pedophilia, hundreds and thousands of teachers people who have anything to do with will be facing the same problem.
Yeah, you know, it's an interesting observation. And also, we know that yesterday, the Archbishop of Durban in South Africa told the BBC that he doesn't think that priests who are so accused should be punished by being sent to prison, that they should just see a doctor. Do you think that is the way to go, or you think that there is need to have them go through a criminal process?
Well, you know, I mean, the matter is that of things, there's a lot. I mean, sorry to use the expression, but Michael Jackson fought similar things until he died. It's not that he's dead. We all seem to be hearing different stories. But the case of the priest is a completely different thing altogether. What we now realize, and I think it's also it's important to think about the after effect of all this, which is that most people now will feel quite reluctant to have anything to do with a child.
I think we lost connection with the bishop. He was trying to explain what he thinks about the suggestions that by the Archbishop of Durban in South Africa, that priests who are accused of abusing kids should not be punished by sending them to a criminal process, but that they should just see a doctor. And when we get him back, we are still going to ask him about the Archbishop of Scotland, who Kit O'Brien, who resigned. He was one of those people that was supposed to elect the new pope, but he resigned because he acknowledged after several denials that he had inappropriate acts or kind of behavior with some priests. And also, we are going to talk about Nigeria, you know, the situation with Boko Haram and the pardoning of political leaders, some corrupt politicians who were convicted in Nigeria by the president. So we've been talking to Bishop Kukah, who is joining us from Sokoto. We will take a short break while we try to get the bishop. While we take that break, we will show you a video of the Pope Francis and
Fratelli e sorelle, buonasera.
Welcome back to SaharaTV. We are having a discussion with Bishop Kukah, who is the Bishop of Sokoto Diocese. Before we left off, he was talking about the Catholic Archbishop of Durban in South Africa, who said that priests who abuse kids should be sent to the hospital rather than being punished in the court of law. So, Bishop, welcome back. Okay. Bishop, sorry, the line is very bad. I can't hear you very well. I think our technical people, they want to call you back and get that right, please. All right. Sorry about that. We're having technical problems today with Bishop Kukah, who is in Sokoto, Nigeria. He's been trying to help us understand what it means to have a new pope, and the pope coming from Latin America, what that means for the church and the rest of the world who we are watching the process that led to the election of the pope. We tried to get him back, and then he would talk to us about other issues like the Nigerian affair, because we are Nigerians and we want to hear his view about the Boko Haram situation in the north and the amnesty that some northern leaders are proposing, and also the pardoning of people like Alamesia, the former governor of Bayelsa State, by the president. We want to know what he thinks about some of these things, and if Nigeria is going in the right direction. So stand by. We will reconnect you to the bishop as soon as our line fixed. And of course, remember that after this interview, we are going to take your Skype calls sometime today. And one of the questions we have for you is what you think about the proposal for an amnesty for Boko Haram fighters. We also ask you to give us your feedback on the debate about the people that own the oil blocks in Nigeria. We've had some of the newspapers in the country publish some names of people who are said to own oil blocks in Nigeria. All right, I understand that we have the bishop now. No? Okay, we don't still. All right, we are going to take a break, and when we come back, we will reconnect to Bishop Kukah.